Whether because of substance use, a terrifying weather event, or horrible accident, these musicians met a tragic end by drowning. Will Sin was born in Scotland in 1960. In the late 80s, he joined the psychedelic group The Shamen on bass and keyboards. The band had already been around for several years at that point, but at that moment they were transitioning to the type of music that would become known as acid house. They were at the forefront of this movement, and they happily collaborated with others who were just starting out and would go on to hugely successful careers. By 1991, The Shamen had released several singles and gone on a successful tour. They'd even played in the Soviet Union to introduce that country to rave music. They were preparing to release their next album, and they traveled to Tenerife to shoot a video for their song Move Any Mountain. While on the island, Sin went for a dip in the ocean where he sadly drowned. Richard West, aka DJ Mr. C, had been working with the Shamen and became a full-time member after Will Sin died. As he explained in an interview with Skittle, "When we lost Will, the band was going to stop. Everyone was devastated. It was a mountainous loss. But we had thousands and thousands of letters from fans sending condolences, but also saying, please keep the Shamen going. This is such an important band." Johnny Burnette is certainly not as well known as Elvis Presley, but there may very well have been no Elvis without Johnny. As his nephew Billy Burnette told Vintage Rock magazine in 2022, a lot of people dismiss the influence of the Burnettes on Elvis, but he got a lot of his ideas from those guys.
Here's a young man who's come out of the country field to join us rock and rollers.
And Johnny's son Rocky recounted his childhood by noting, "We had such a yo-yo existence. We were up and then we were down. When Dreamin' and You're 16 came out, boy, all of a sudden my dad was getting the TV work he needed. He was doing the international tours. He had his own record company. Johnny could have gone on to even greater success, but his life was cut tragically short. On August 14, 1964, he was out on a lake in California and returning to shore after dark when a motorboat collided with his boat. His body was recovered 2 days later. He was only 30 years old. Jeff Buckley came from music royalty and was well on his way to his own successful career when tragedy struck. Strangely enough, his death might not have been as surprising to himself as it was to those around him. Musician Joan Wasser told Mojo magazine of the eerie prediction he once made to her, as she revealed, "Not too long after we met, he said, 'You know, I'm going to die young.'" Meanwhile, Buckley's friend Tammy recounted, he was dreaming about his death and he knew that something was up, and he felt it. In May 1997, Buckley was in Memphis to record his second album when he decided to take a dip in the Mississippi River. He was wearing clothes and floating along when a passing boat caused a wake that evidently pulled him under. A friend who was waiting on the shore recalled that he looked away for a second. When he turned around again, Buckley had disappeared. His body was eventually discovered by civilians on a riverboat. He was only 30 years old. Naya Rivera was most famous for her starring turn on the musical TV show Glee, but she also released her own music, including the 2019 EP My Heart. On July 8, 2020, she was boating with her 4-year-old son on a lake in California. Later that year, a lawsuit filed on behalf of her son revealed some of the tragic details of what happened that day.
It can't be easy in your position when your witness is a 4-year-old.
No.
According to Rivera's attorney, while she and her son were swimming, the boat was carried away, most likely by the current and wind. The boy was able to get back on the boat with the assistance of his mother. He then braced himself on the vessel, which was being forcefully rocked back and forth in the current and wind. After her son was safe, Rivera put her arm up in the air and cried for help. Alas, she then disappeared into the water. Her body was recovered from the lake 5 days later. She was only 33 years old. Albert Ayler is now recognized as a visionary jazz musician, but he wasn't quite so celebrated during his lifetime. He endured a lot of hardship and rejection. Even though he was clearly talented, audiences just didn't get what he was playing. Eventually, it appears to have been too much for him. Musician Annette Peacock recalled to The Guardian, "The last time I saw him was at Slug's Saloon on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. He just finished the set and he was surrounded by a small group of sycophants. He turned away from the group and said the last words he would ever speak to me. 'I'm not even here,' he said. I realized that his spirit was broken." Other friends recalled Ayler had been acting strange for a while and was dealing with financial struggles. One day in November 1970, he disappeared after a fight with his girlfriend. His body was found in the East River almost 3 weeks later, and the official cause of death was drowning. It was presumed to be a suicide, although there was no way to know for sure. Dolores O'Riordan was the lead singer of the Irish rock band The Cranberries. On hits like Zombie, Dreams, and Linger, her beautifully haunting voice sent shivers down her fans' spines. Despite her band's success, she was dealing with a lot of pain in her life, including abuse when she was a child, an eating disorder, and mental health issues. In January 2018, while O'Riordan was in London to work on some music, she was drinking alone in her hotel room into the early morning hours. At some point, she got into the bathtub with her clothes on and drowned. While it seemed like her death might have been a suicide, the inquest determined that it was simply a tragic accident. While O'Riordan had taken medication, only normal amounts were found in her bloodstream.
She was such a young woman at the time when fame hit that made it overwhelming too. She was quite shy.
Whitney Houston had one of the greatest voices of all time. Even though she was dealing with plenty of troubles in her personal life, it was still a shock when she died in 2012 at the age of 48, on the day before the Grammys, no less. Houston was discovered in a hotel room on the afternoon of February 11th by her assistant, face down in a bathtub and unresponsive. There had only been a foot of water in the bathtub, and the assistant had only been out of the room for about 30 minutes. Because Houston was known to have used drugs in the past, many assumed that she must have overdosed. However, the coroner determined that her cause of death was drowning, as well as atherosclerotic heart disease and cocaine use. Henry Spiller, director of the Kentucky Regional Poison Control Center, spoke to CNN about the autopsy report. He explained that while Houston drowned, it was most likely a reaction to the cocaine in her system that really put her in danger. He also noted that she likely suffered a fatal arrhythmia. That could have caused her to lose consciousness, thereby making it possible to drown in just a foot of water. Aaron Carter managed to find fame for himself after emerging out of the shadow cast by his older brother Backstreet Boy Nick Carter, but he was also struggling with plenty of demons. Aaron's drug abuse was common knowledge enough that someone called the cops to perform a wellness check on him in September 2022 after seeing him with an aerosol can on a live social media video. Aaron told the cops to leave without allowing them to help him. His body was discovered by his housekeeper just a few weeks later. The coroner's report determined that Aaron had gotten into the bathtub fully clothed and then became incapacitated due to the effects of huffing combined with taking Xanax. This in turn led to the drowning that was determined to be the main cause of his death. But his ex-fiancée and the mother of his child, Melanie Martin, wasn't so sure about that explanation. She told TMZ, "The results of the autopsy are not closure for me. It claims death by drowning, but also adds he was wearing a t-shirt and a necklace in the bathtub, which doesn't make sense. Why would he be in a bathtub with clothes on?"
We're still processing. I don't think we'll ever really get over it.
Dennis Wilson was a founding member and the drummer of the Beach Boys, but eventually his drug and alcohol abuse problems got so bad that his bandmates kicked him out. When they later agreed to let him back in, it was contingent on him getting sober. His friend Colleen McGovern recalled him saying on the day before he died, "We're going to the boat, we're going to have a good time, and tomorrow I'm going to go to detox." Wilson drank a lot for the next 24 hours, to the point that his blood alcohol level was measured at 0.26%. The owner of the boat later recalled what happened while Wilson was swimming in the water. "I saw him come up to within 2 feet of the surface. Then I saw him swim behind my rowboat, where I couldn't see his face or what he was doing. I think I heard him take a breath of air. At that point, I saw him go straight down and back out of sight. I said to myself, that sucker's playing a game on me. He's trying to hide. That was my fatal error, because that was the last time he went down." Wilson's body was recovered 30 minutes later. He was only 39 years old.
My name is Dennis Wilson. I make rock and roll records.
Brian Jones was a founding member of the Rolling Stones, but he was eventually kicked out just 1 month before his death. On the night of his passing, he was hosting a few friends at his house where they drank, did drugs, and went swimming. One guest, Jenny Lawson, recalled, "Despite his condition, he was able to swim. However, he was rather sluggish." Lawson left him alone for a few minutes and then returned to the pool to find Jones motionless at the bottom. He was pulled out and there were attempts at CPR, but they were unsuccessful. He was only 27. The coroner ruled that Jones died as a result of drowning by immersion in fresh water associated with severe liver dysfunction caused by fatty degeneration and ingestion of alcohol and drugs. But almost immediately, the press helped turn Jones's death into a conspiracy theory, with many people to this day believing that there was foul play. One of them is his daughter, Barbara Marion, who told Sky News in 2019, "I think he was murdered, and I think the police did not investigate in the way they should have." Jim Hodder was a founding member of the iconic rock group Steely Dan. He played drums on the band's first 3 albums, and he also occasionally tackled lead vocals. But by 1974, he'd left the group and spent the next decade and a half mostly doing session work. In 1990, Hodder was hosting a pool party at his California home. While details about what happened are scant, he was discovered unresponsive in the pool. He was rushed to the hospital where he was put on life support, but he didn't pull through, dying at the age of 42. After Hodder's death, the deputy coroner announced that he'd recently been drinking to excess. He also noted that Hodder was taking prescription Valium to prevent alcohol withdrawal symptoms, as well as another medication for a seizure disorder. His blood alcohol level was found to be an extremely high 0.28%. So it's not hard to imagine how that could have caused him to pass out or otherwise put himself in danger in his pool. If you or anyone you know needs help with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP 4357.